What are you hearing about the situation with Gary Ridgway right now?
Yeah, what I'm hearing right now is that he is close to death, but I don't have any facts to back that up. I did see a photo of him about a year ago, and he was in a wheelchair. Didn't look very healthy at all, so it's not surprising that people are saying that he's in his last days, but I don't have any facts to back that up.
I mean, he's accused of killing so many people. He's been convicted of killing, I believe, 49. When he goes, how many secrets do you think he's actually taken to the grave with him?
Yeah, I think that Ridgway's taken a lot of secrets to the grave with him. When he was arrested in 2001 and finally decided that he was going to cooperate in as much as he did with the task force, he said he killed 65. He was going to confess to 65. He pled guilty to 49, and we closed 51 cases. 2 of them we weren't able to charge, but we know that he is responsible for those cases. So when we interviewed him for 6 months, getting information from him was like pulling teeth. So we were pulling teeth for information for each and every case that we finally charged him with. And we knew that he was withholding a lot of information. We knew that he's a pathological liar. He's also a psychopath. And so I think that at times he didn't know truth from lie. So I'm sure that he's kept a lot of secrets, and he's going to die with some secrets.
Him dying is really about the families. All those families, how do you think they'll deal with his death? Will it be a movement to move on for closure, or do they still have the same unanswered questions?
I think, the cases that he pled guilty to, 49 cases, those families can never have closure. The families of missing girls and women today will never have closure until their loved one is found alive. Hopefully, some will be. There are some, of course, that are still unsolved homicides. The most that families can do, from all the conversations I've had with families, is to pray for answers to the questions that they have. Why did my daughter die? Who killed my daughter? And where's her body? And when can I put her to rest in a proper way? And those are the questions that we can help families answer. Ridgway's confession helped us give those answers to 51 families, but there are a number of families still left today that don't have those answers. But I don't want them to give up, because I have tremendous faith in the King County Sheriff's Office and local law enforcement here in the state of Washington, some of the best law enforcement officers in the country. And I know that. I've worked with law enforcement all across the country. They are dedicated to finding the people responsible for the unsolved murders that still are under investigation today. They're not going to give up. Guarantee it. They're not going to give up.
Ridgway was kind of one of those first cold cases that was solved through DNA. How much has this case affected law enforcement worldwide on solving cases, on making people have some of that closure, having some of those answered?
Yeah, I think law enforcement over the years, they've learned a lot from the cases like Ted Bundy, cases like Ridgway case. There's new techniques. There's new techniques in processing outdoor crime scenes. I think a lot of that is in use today, but really, what's had the impact on investigations today is the fast-paced progress of DNA, familial DNA research and those sorts of things. That's really been the breakthrough in solving some of these cases, because a case investigation starts with the identification of unidentified human remains. And so DNA now can be used to identify victims with finding bones. And so once you've identified the victim, the investigation now begins, because then you can go to family and friends and build out a case, track down where they were last seen, and then continue the investigation from there. So DNA and other forensic techniques have really aided investigators in today's investigations.
What would your message be to the families of those Green River victims that have not been found yet?
Well, there's 3 that have not been located yet, and again, I know that it seems impossible, but people said it was impossible that that we were going to solve this case. It took us 19 years, but we did it, and there were a lot of hurdles to overcome, and I think my message is just to call the investigators, let them know you're still there, let them know that you care. I know that most families will do that, but just for me personally, know and understand and believe that cops today, that the law enforcement officers of today, detectives working on these unsolved cases, are not going to give up. They will find answers.
Do you think that over the last, I guess, do you think justice was served giving him the life sentence and him pleading, or would have you rather seen something else happen?
Yeah, the question about making a deal with Ridgway back when he was arrested, life in prison versus the death penalty. Today we don't even have the death penalty, so he wouldn't, if we caught someone like Ridgway today, it wouldn't even be a question. It was a tool for us, and that's one of the reasons I was disappointed to see the death penalty go away, because with people like Ridgway, they're cowards. The first thing they want to do is save their life. How do they save their life? Confess. And that's what he did. He is a coward. He saved his life. He confessed to 49. We closed 51 cases. So yes, I think it was the right thing to do. Otherwise, we'd have only had 7 families that would really have answers to the questions they were asking, instead of 51.
Did the families ever get an answer to the question of why he did this?
The only answer that Ridgway ever gave us when we asked him why he did it was because I could. That was it. And this is a typical psychopath. I mean, he's typical, no remorse, not sorry for anything, and really can't think of any other reason other than he could.
How chilling was it when you were sitting down there off of Airport Way in the makeshift jail that you guys built for him? How chilling was it to sit there and talk to him?
I had 3 days that I was able to visit with him and interview him, and what I remember, and I think what other detectives will tell you that were the primary interviewers, when you sat down with him and looked at him and looked him in the eye, you were looking at pure evil. I interviewed Ted Bundy in 1986 for 3 days with Detective Bob Keppel, and I had exactly the same feeling. It's just a dark, deep hole filled with evil. Hard to explain, but I think people understand it when I describe it that way. How else could you describe somebody who just randomly grabs people off the street, especially our most vulnerable young girls and young women, and takes their life?
It's weird. We won't say where we are, but I mean we're very close to where he went and dumped some of those bodies up in these hills. And I remember seeing the video of him walking you guys through down the ravines out in this area to try to find those bodies.
Yeah.
When you're back in this area, do you remember those times?
All the time. Yeah, I remember. I can close my eyes and I can see the sites where the victims were found, the positions of the body, the state of decomposition that some were in. Some were scattered bones, but I can remember all of those. If I close my eyes and think hard enough, I can still see those sites today. He took us on one trip. We asked him about a victim who was killed in Seattle, and showed him the picture and said, "Hey, can you take us to where you put her body?" And he directed us right to Seward Park. This is where Mary West was found. And back when the body was found, I was a detective and I was in charge of the crime scene, and there were about 125 people there that we were directing in different ways into the crime scene, into the scene where the body was found. Which path did he take? And I chose 3 different ways, but I selected one in particular and said, I think this is the pathway he took in. And then years later, when Ridgway took us back to that site, he stopped at that very spot and pointed, "That's the path I took in." And back during back during those days, it just gave me goosebumps. I had to get out of the car and walk in and look at the site where Mary West was found. Chilling.
What do you hope for the families when Gary finally does die? What do you hope the families are able to do?
I don't think Ridgway's death is something that it's not going to take away any pain. It's not going to bring their daughters back. They know that better than any of us. I suppose that from my meetings with the families, I remember most of the families were Christian. And I would imagine that those families that are of that faith understand and realize that Ridgway had a judgment day in King County Court and got 49 consecutive life sentences. But Ridgway is going to have a judgment day, and he better pray, because that's going to be his final judgment.
Obviously, for the families and the women that he killed, it was obviously a horrible thing. But these deaths affected a lot more people, including your crews, your people that worked out there.
Yeah.
How hard was it for your detectives and your people in the King County Sheriff's Office to move through this whole process?
Yeah. I'll be honest with you, the detectives I still talk to today are still carrying the memories. I just explained to you how I can see the sites where the bodies were found. I know what bones were found in these sites, and other detectives are having the same feelings. It's something that you live with. You can't collect scores and scores and scores of dead bodies and erase those memories, especially of little girls. So here's one human being, Ridgway, if you want to call him a human being, one person, Ridgway, who had such a tremendous impact, not only on each and every family that lost their loved one, but on the entire community and on this entire state, on the detectives, but also on this entire state. There was a dark cloud over the state. No one believed we would catch this guy. And then in 2001, we did. And people still come up to me today and say, thank you. I remember I met Ridgway here. I remember I worked with Ridgway at Kenworth Trucking. I was working at a 7-Eleven, up on Pacific Highway. Ridgway used to come in. There's so many, and people have impacts that from Ridgway that just have this ripple effect. You know, people remember it almost more than the day Mount St. Helens blew up, to tell you the truth.
I grew up in Issaquah at the time, so I mean, I was here when all that was happening. I was here when Bundy was down at Lake Sammamish. Is there anything that you can look on the positive side of what the Green River killer brought to anything? Is there I mean, are people more careful? Did they understand did it help law enforcement look more at how do we help victims? How do we help people get out of those situations?
Here, you know, there are some positives. I think, you know, some positives in the way that we investigate missing persons now. We're quicker to take a missing persons report here in Washington State than we were back in the early 80s and late 70s. We shouldn't be. I know that we changed that law, and I don't know where it is now. We shouldn't be waiting 24 hours to take a missing persons report. That was one of the mistakes that put us 24 hours behind investigating, you know, a case. I'll tell you, one of the things that I think is bothersome is that human trafficking was so prevalent back in the 80s. And we haven't learned anything today. We still drive up and down Aurora Avenue, Pacific Highway South, downtown, Tacoma, Seattle, and we drive by these young girls on the street and they're invisible to us. We haven't done enough to help young girls, and for that matter today, young boys, who are on the edge of they're vulnerable and they need help, and we need to help them rather than look at them as criminals. And that's what we did in '82. They were first arrested for prostitution, and then we said, okay, you need some help, and now they've got an arrest record. We need to help these young people before they hit the street.